How do you feel about the fan theory that Treatima is Luffy's mum? Alright, so this is not a new idea. And in case you're unaware, Treatima was an Empress of Amazon Lily. She served between Shakky and Boa Hancock, and sadly passed away of love sickness 13 years ago, which was when Boa Hancock took over as Empress. And the thing that interests me most about Treatima is the man she fell for. Who was it? Because these Amazon Lily Empresses have pretty damn high standards. Standards set as far back as Gloriosa falling in love with the future Pirate King Goldie Roger, as well as Shakky marrying Dark King Silver's Rayleigh, and then Boa Hancock again falling for a future Pirate King in Monkey D. Luffy. So it has to be someone important. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be, but you'd figure that if Treatima fell for just some dude, then everything might have worked out and she wouldn't be dead right now. But when the SBSO Volume 109 came out, which was where Oda revealed the name and design of Treatima for the first time, for that video, I used a thumbnail of Treatima holding a baby Luffy and Dragon walking away in the background, very much fanning the flames of this theory. And that's because whenever a new woman is introduced in One Piece, the immediate fanbase reaction is, could this be Luffy's mother? And if not, could it be someone else's mother? Whose mother is it? Especially if it's a woman of some prominence. And to be completely honest, despite being more than happy to have fun with the idea and thumbnails, I don't really buy into the whole Treatima Luffy connection. When chapter 1156 came out, I saw a lot of comparisons of Treatima's young face with Luffy, and I'm not immune from using aesthetic elements as a basis of relation theories, and I kind of see where people are coming from, but I do still think it's a pretty big stretch. Remembering that Treatima is quite young in this image, we're not exactly sure how young, but she is noticeably smaller and childer than both Shakky and Gloriosa. And Oda tends to draw almost all of his child characters with that more Luffy style of innocence in the facial features. So Treatima smiling a bit like Luffy here, that doesn't sell me on it on its own. But the bigger issue with this theory is something that I've brought up in other videos, but when we were introduced to Amazon Lily, it was stated that members of the Kuja tribe only give birth to girls. Although this is somewhat disputed because the official English translation does make it sound like Amazon Lily, the island, is the reason for this phenomena, as it states that only female children are born, quote, here, but the original Japanese just says that all children that the Kuja give birth to are female. So it removes the location from the equation. And I trust this information because this is the One Piece narrator speaking, and I can't think of a situation off the top of my head where the narrator has lied to us. And that's the simple part of the theory. It gets a lot more complex when you try to explain things like why Treatima gave Luffy up, because she would have passed away when Luffy was 6 years old, and to explain that, I guess Luffy being a boy means that he can't grow up on Amazon Lily, and maybe Treatima died of a less traditional love sickness due to missing her child, and that would admittedly be a very kind of Oda thing to write with his current parental focus. But until the whole monogender birth issue is resolved, I can't really seriously consider this, because you've got the narrator straight up telling us that this idea is wrong. I looked it up last night, and Dragon will be 17 at the time of the God Valley incident. I think we might see Dragon there as a young Marine. There's also a lot of other big Revolutionary Army characters there, probably where they met. I mean, there is Kuma and Ivankov. Don't know if they met Dragon there. But also, before we get into that, this is one more thing in favor of the Treatima idea, which is that she and Dragon were probably around the same age. So maybe if Treatima sighted a handsome dragonman and went, I want some of that, then that could be our Luffy mother. But I still think probably not. But I do hope that we see Dragon during this flashback, and very potentially being an enlisted Marine present during God Valley. This would be amazing, as I think it could have started his revolutionary ideas. After being employed as a glorified guard to prevent slaves from escaping during the native hunting competition, it would be very easy to see Dragon being radicalized after that. But I also think it would be interesting if Dragon was to witness Garp and Roger teaming up to protect the world nobles after this disgusting behavior, because that would show Dragon that neither the Marines nor piracy is the path forward, and potentially inspire him to found his eventual third faction, the Freedom Fighters, which would go on to become the Revolutionary Army. But that is why we have the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is one of these funky flavor fidget sticks. It is a no smoke, no vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, no significant cost to your monies, and a non-toxic, brilliant burst of natural flavored air for your oral enjoyment, as well as to assist you in the battle of breaking bad habits. Fume provides you with a powerful and much needed ally by giving you something else to reach for instead. Something much more better in every way. Even if you're not using it for that peak flavored air experience, you can just fidget with it into infinity, which is exactly what I do on a daily basis. There is always a one of these on my desk, whether it's at home or at the office, because I cannot sit still. And over 500,000 people have already made the switch to Fume as part of their habit-changing journey. So if you are ready to try it for yourself, mate, now is the time. And for a limited now is the time. If you order the journey pack using my code GroundlineReview, then you will get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. So just click the link, tryfume.com/GroundlineReview, or scan the QR code on screen to get yours today. And as always, thank you so much again to Fume, because it's their sponsorship that allows us to bring you the best fictional pirate content possible as often as possible. So definitely try them out, but for now it's back to you, me. Internet man, I have a question. Do you think that Kyo is an undercover Marine? I ask this because in the last chapter, it was stated that the Marines mobilized, quote, too fast, and that got me thinking that there might be a traitor. Plus, with the face shape, Kyo reminds me of Zephyr from Film Z. Since we are getting Shiki from Strongworld, it isn't impossible he too could be canon. I kind of wish this was true. Film Z is my favorite One Piece movie, and it would be so cool to see Zephyr incorporated into canon somehow. But I don't think that Silver Axe's design matches up very well with Zephyr's. Beyond the bulky frame and the short hair, those are quite similar. But when I look at their faces, their lips and noses are very distinctly different. But I do have to admit, I love the idea of a future Marine Admiral going undercover with the Rocks Pirates, because the Marines would have needed someone of that level of strength to be worthy of infiltrating them in the first place. And this is not at all an unheard of idea, as Diaz Drake did the exact same thing to infiltrate the Beast Pirates. He had to spend years building a career as a notorious dinosaur and be powerful enough to earn his spot in the Tobiropo. But I'm also pretty sure that Silver Axe is a Devil Fruit user, because he has that Mad Monk Rouge style transformation when we first met him. He went from being super scrawny to big, bulky man after being kicked. And Zephyr was not a Devil Fruit user. In fact, Zephyr was very critical of characters who relied too much on their fruit abilities. And there's a great moment in Film Z where Zephyr actually chastises Kizaru for leaning too heavily on fictional fruit, and that is something that's gone on to be quite an enduring trait of Kizaru, who uses very little haki, presumably because his character has very little willpower. But TLDR, I don't think that Silver Axe is Zephyr, but if Oda can make it work, then I'm open to the twist, and also, even if he isn't Zephyr, he might still be the traitor. We need yet another chapter to understand just how hot Shakky is. The Gorosei fawning over her is probably the next thing we will see. So I think that is when some shark jumping would happen. The Five Elders view humans as insects, and I feel like it would be a form of bestiality for them to feel attraction to a disgusting lowly human. But then again, the Five Elders, they're ruled over by Emu, who himself appears to be eternally simping for Nefertari Lily. So I guess anything could happen, but my instinct is that it would be a bad move to have Shakky be capable of crippling even the Five Elders. However, there is every chance that this question will be answered, as if we see the God Valley incident, and if a Shakky is part of it, then we know that Saint J. Garcia Saturn was on the island at the time, so we could see his reaction to Shakky, and that would answer this question quite nicely, or at least hopefully quite nicely. Am I the only one who feels like the God Valley incident loses a lot of its legendary status if it turns out the reason it happened was because of Shakky? I'm not sure about that. I feel like it has the potential to be the other way around, for the legend of God Valley to grow, because the way these pieces are falling is starting to make it sound like a Helen of Troy sort of situation, which sparked an entire Trojan War. However, I can see where the diminishment comes from, and it's probably because of how wacky Rox and Roger are going over Shakky. It's not some manly pursuit of love, it's two drooling Sims fighting over a woman who wants neither of them, and it does have the potential to be pretty incredibly cringy if Oda doesn't write write it well, but I do have faith that he will if this is where we're going. And if so, I also love how well Shakky's role fits into One Piece history so far as we know it. If Shakky were to be a major catalyst of the God Valley incident, then it makes so much sense as to why the world government immediately offered Boa Hancock a warlord position when she was only 18 years old after her first outing as a pirate. Because the world government would not have forgotten the chaos that Shakky's beauty caused, and how her very existence was almost able to completely destabilize the world planet. And Shakky did all of that without Boa Hancock's devil fruit powers, which makes her infinitely more dangerous than Shakky ever could have been in theory. Because if Boa Hancock had Shakky's more flirtatious personality and was more willing to adventure out and spend time with men in general, then she would probably be a similar threat to the planet right now. One more thing with God Valley though, another reason why some people may find it underwhelming is because that's just the nature of solving mysteries. The answers to questions are almost never as exciting as being asked a question. And so the more we learn about God Valley, that mystique and legendary status it once had was always going to fade away, at least somewhat. Man on the internet, what are your opinions on Shiki being a Kurozumi? His antics are just like them, just something that tickled my brain. I do think his personality fits the Kurozumi clan quite well, but he doesn't have their trademark lavender hair color. Not that every Kurozumi member does. Higurashi has more platinum limey kind of hair, although Semimaru does appear to have had the lavender, which is just faded with old age. But Shiki being a Kurozumi would make sense in that Shiki does have a connection to Kurozumi Higurashi, who we still haven't seen yet with the Rocks Pirates. And we do know that Higurashi left Wano at some point and went traveling. She was very potentially a Rocks Pirate member, because it wasn't just Shiki that she encountered, she also had the face of Buckingham Stussy at one point. So if she and Shiki were family, then that would make this connection fit quite nicely. I am 100% sure that we will be shown how Kuma got to Amazon Lily in a flashback, and we're going to see Eva gender bend Dragon and Kuma, lol. Alright, 100, that's such a high percentage. But we do know that Kuma must have been on Amazon Lily to have it logged in his special travel Bible, and he probably had some experience, or I guess knowledge of its culture and its residents to know that this was the place that he needed to send Luffy. And Ivankov helping out may not be out of the question, because we do already have seen a female Kuma drawn by Oda, courtesy of one of the SBS segments. And I would like to note that female Kuma wears lipstick in the style of daughter Jewelry Bonnie, which in retrospect was an early connecting of the two of them. But alternatively, Kuma could have been one of those special Luffy men who had no attraction to Boa Hancock at all, and so was able to infiltrate without significant issue. Although the most simple solution is still probably that Kuma was sent to Amazon Lily as part of his duties as a warlord, like how he was sent to Thriller Bark to deliver a message to Gecko Moria. Boa Hancock was probably doing, Hancocky stuff and not responding to world government communication. And so in response to that no response, they sent in the big boy. Random, but as a huge Ace fan ever since the Seraphim were introduced, I thought why not make a clone of the son of Roger? They had him prisoner, so they could easily have gotten a DNA sample. Maybe the 7 Warlords ones are a test, and the strongest ones like Whitebeard, Ace, Roger, and maybe even Zebek himself are all ready and waiting now. They definitely had the chance to acquire Ace's DNA when he was a prisoner. However, look, if I was a world government, then I would probably institute some sort of ban on cloning him specifically. And I guess not just him either, but anyone with the will of D. The world government do not want another potential Roger or a Joy Boy emerging, which is why they went to such great lengths to try and exterminate Ace before he was even born, and why they had to have a whole Paramount war just to execute him. We have yet to see a D clone, even though there is potential that the Mads Project had Rox's DNA and also tried to clone him alongside Whitebeard and Buckingham Stussy. But it may also be seen as a very taboo thing no matter where you fall in terms of ideology, to clone the D. I believe by the end of the year we will still be in flashbackception. I'd say probably not, but at the same time, I don't know if I'd be complaining if we were. As of recording this video, here is a scarysome thought, but we only have an estimated 13 chapters of One Piece left in 2025, which is a crazy thing to say with it only being August, but that's just how Oda's schedule works these days. And that's if there's no unexpected breaks. We're looking at 13 maximum, but it could be less than that. And 13 in the context of flashbacks is a big number, and it would be unprecedented to still be in a flashback by the time that this year ends, as currently the longest flashback in One Piece is Kozuki Oden, who we spent 13.5 chapters with, and this Loki, Harold Rock's Shakky flashback is currently gone on for 5.5 chapters, and it has been moving pretty damn quickly in that time. So we've still got to wrap up Rocks, and we've got to move on to Harold, got to see the horn ripping. We haven't even seen him encounter the Holy Knights yet. And then finally, we need to see how and why Harold died. So there is still a fair bit left to go through. So unless things get pretty abruptly cut sometime soon, there is a very good chance that we'll still be in this flashback until November, maybe December. But this could also become the longest flashback in the series, and we may not see Monday Elbaf again until 2026. That could happen. It's not what I would bet on at this stage though, unless Oda needs to take some pretty sudden and unexpected breaks. I think Roger's base is a fraud for thinking that One Piece is going to end in 2027. It will still be ongoing in 2030 at least, I assure you. All right, so fraud, that's a bit harsh. Mr. Base is not a fraud, to the best of my knowledge. But having brought up the timeline for the rest of 2025, I cannot see One Piece ending in 2027. That would be madness. That would mean that if the series ended at the very end of 2027, the very final slot for a chapter it could be, that we would only have somewhere between 77 to 85 chapters left of the series in total, which is about the length of Whole Cake Island. And there is just no way that I can see everything being wrapped up in that time frame, especially since we haven't even finished Elbaf yet. Once we do, I think we'll have a better idea of the end point of One Piece, but there's a lot to resolve here. 2027, it's too soon. Mr. Internet Man, what do you think will happen to the Celestial Dragons at the end of One Piece? Many people say they will all be killed or imprisoned, but I hope that Oda finds a better solution. So what I think will happen is that all of the world nobles will perform some sort of collective action that will doom themselves, because I find it very difficult to see Eiichiro Oda using his protagonist to kill them all, and I also find the answer of them all being imprisoned quite unsatisfying after their egregious crimes against humanity. So I think their fate is going to be entirely in their own hands. Like, say the Red Line is collapsing, but they refuse to leave Marijois because it's the Holy Land, and they think they're gods, so they think they're going to be fine, but then they all end up falling to their oblivion. Something like that. Internet Man, do you still think Eustace Kid could make a narrative comeback in Elbaf, or is it Jova for the Kid Pirates? I honestly thought that he would have made an appearance by now. That we would get to Elbaf and Kid would be either imprisoned or freshly fished out of the water, but he's just nowhere to be seen, so I don't know anymore. But I think it would be really weird to leave Elbaf without addressing Kid's whereabouts. Down south, ex-technician pirate-loving Internet Man, do you have any One Piece Lego? I do, actually. My wife recently got me the live-action Baratier set for my birthday, which I've slowly been working through, and it's pretty damn cool. There's a lot of technical brilliance that's gone into designing it, although it has made me really wish that there was One Piece Lego based on the anime and the manga, because I would go pretty crazy for something like a Whole Cake Chateau, a Water 7, or an Onigashima build. Imagine Roger pulls up to Shakky's bar and recreates Luffy and Blackbeard's first encounter with rocks. So that would be pretty fantastic, in my opinion. Roger wants to visit this fabled pirate paradise, potentially because he knows that that's where Shakky is, and he rocks up to the bar and has the same interaction that Luffy had with Blackbeard on Jaya, and that is how the Roger-Rocks rivalry begins. Although another, possibly non-Shakky reason why Roger may turn up is because there's supposed to be a poneglyph on Hachinosu. I'm not sure when it got there, but that was the reason why Law went to Hachinosu and caused the Rocky Port incident. So we may have a potential poneglyph sighting incoming in this flashback as well. And it may even serve as the first time that Roger or anyone has seen a poneglyph, because the Roger pirates don't reach Lodestar Island until 39 years ago according to the One Piece timeline. So that is something very fun to look forward to. If this flashback continues at its expansive rate, we may actually see the Roger pirates landing at the official final island in the New World, Lodestar, which we would have no reason to see otherwise. The Straw Hats don't really need to go there because they already know about the poneglyphs and have almost everything they need to head straight to Laugh Tale, but I would love to see Roger's journey and what the official end of the New World looks like. And thank you so much again to Fume for sponsoring this video, and definitely check them out through the link in the description.